Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, every episode, I always ask you to rate and review the podcast because it helps the show in the battle against those pesky algorithms. So if you do that, though, please send me a screenshot of it and I'll give you a shout out on here. But on with today's show. Now, I think that we've all been on a journey of sorts over the last 2 years, and I wanted to talk some more about the challenges that we've collectively overcome. And today, I've invited Amanda Mountain from SAP onto the podcast, and she's going to discuss how 2020 and the last couple of years have reshaped the way that she's had to lead her team at SAP Digital Commerce, and also the impact that being virtual has had on employees and the B2B sales and customer experiences and everything in between. And although this is a tech podcast, and we will talk tech with Amanda, of course, we'll also share why we need to keep a human-focused approach on employees and to keep them engaged and businesses in the green. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the US, where Amanda is waiting to speak with us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you for having me, first of all, and for the warm welcome. I need it because it's frigidly cold here in Syracuse, New York. But I'm Amanda Mountain, and I head up the digital commerce business at SAP. And I'm here at home in Syracuse, where I've been working from home kind of well before the pandemic started. And what I do is really quite diverse, on a daily basis, but it helps if you think about the image of an iceberg. So at the top, you have the SAP store. That's our online marketplace where customers and prospects from around the world can discover, try, buy, renew more than 1,800 solutions from SAP and our trusted partners. That's above the waterline, and that's probably the most noticeable part of the business. But in order to keep that running, at scale and at pace, keeping up with all our customers, making sure that they have a really good online journey, customer support, all of that sort of stuff. There's a lot that goes in to showing simplicity to the customers and the partners under the waterline. So we've got a lot of work that we do as a team to make sure that everything kind of above the water on the store runs really smoothly.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to looking above and underwater with you in a few moments. But before we do, though, I'd love to take you back before all this. Can you share your origin story, where your passion for tech came from, what lit the spark, and ultimately what that moment was that put you on this path you're on right now?
Oh, an origin story, huh?
Yeah.
That, those are usually for villains. Or
what's that quote? Are you around long enough to be the good guy or you become the bad guy?
Oh, so for me, I came into my current role in kind of a roundabout journey, originally starting in public relations. So I was in the consumer space for a few years when I first started my career. And just one day I got the chance to work on a tech company account. And it was like a light bulb going off. My gravitation to tech was immediate because it was clean and straightforward, reassuring. It dealt with facts. Your technology either performs like it says it will perform, or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, that becomes really apparent in ratings and reviews, in analyst reports. So I loved that the data and transparency that tech provided. And, through my work in PR, I, then was kind of led into analyst relations, industry analyst relations. So I'm a very kind of statistics, data-driven person. And, I enjoyed debating. It was almost like working with the analysts like you were working on an academic paper. So kind of that back and forth. And through analyst relations, I got over to SAP. And at SAP, I've had various roles across the marketing mix. until 2015, when I heard about a new business that was getting started within SAP. And it was this business in order to do business online with our customers, to make things simpler and easier for customers and partners. And I shot a 2-sentence note over to our new chief digital officer who was going to run the business. And I said, I hear you've got a new unit starting. Can I join? And about 2 minutes later, I got the email back that said, when can you start? And it is sort of gone from there. I started, we were a startup within the company, and, there were maybe 20 of us to start. The team is now close to 100. And when I started, I was a team of one. I was doing kind of all the communications for the new unit, and now I lead the whole team. I'm responsible for the whole kit and caboodle, the operations and support, our partner solutions business, the customer experience on the store. So, how is our usability scores? What is sort of the state of the art in terms of search, that sort of stuff. It's the whole thing. And for us, it's kind of two focuses. One, we're expanding the sales motions that we cover from an online experience. So I really believe that customers deserve a true omni-channel experience. And that's not omni-channel marketing, where you talk to the customers and prospects through a variety of different marketing channels, but rather it's that choice of how does the customer want to buy. And so sometimes they want to buy completely online, fully self-service, everything from, discovery to decision-making happens there, plus your purchase. Sometimes they want a more consultative sale and they want to work with an account exec in a more traditional manner. But beyond that, they sometimes want to make that choice in the middle of the flow. So they start online, they decide they want to switch to an AE. They start with an AE and they decide they want to switch online. So in order to enable really that fluidity between the channels for the customer, we need to be able to digitize more of our sales motions. And, that seems really simple, and it is in a consumer world, but in the business to business world, when you're talking about something like enterprise software, there's a lot more complexity built in to both the buying and the selling process. And so we're really focused on digitizing that and making as much of that accessible to the customer online as we. And then the other focus for us is a particular kind of part of SAP's business, which is our business technology platform. And here, not only do we sell that product on our online store, but that platform itself, as we move forward, is going to be the basis for new portfolio for me to sell. So it has a very kind of virtuous relationship with the store. So as the business technology platform gets enhanced with new capabilities, then I have partners building on that platform who come to me with their new apps, with the type of things, like, instant provisioning and metering and that sort of stuff built in, which makes it much better for an online sale. So it's a virtuous circle that we have going with our business technology platform. And that's our other big focus for this year.
Fantastic. And I did speak with Anna-Marie Frank, head of SAP Labs in California, and she was talking about hybrid working and collaborative communities across SAP and SAP Labs. But I'm curious, how have the last 2 years impacted your team at SAP Digital Commerce, and how has being virtual affected you and your employees? I've got a feeling there's going to be a few stories there, right?
Definitely. Well, I mean, first, the business itself, the digital commerce business has taken off during the pandemic. So we were already providing a way for customers to buy for their professional lives the same way they do in their personal lives, online and in their own time and pace. So we were at the right place, the right time when the pandemic created, even greater need for people to be able to do business remotely. So our business accelerated. Our business accelerated at the same time that our employees were faced with this challenge of, being completely work from home, in order to maintain their own health and safety. And so even though we did have already, it's a global team, it was geographically diverse, a lot of folks within the team were already working from home, myself included. I've been working from home for like 15 years, but we did pre-pandemic have the opportunity to connect in person. And I always think of those kind of in-person connections a little bit like putting, making a deposit in the bank, kind of in the bank of your relationship, in the bank of your network. And, time and distance start to stretch those networks. And we used to have a way of working where, the network would kind of expand and contract. You'd get to come together in person. We used to have, annual kickoff meetings with the whole team, or different groups would kind of reconfigure to work together on a specific project and they'd meet in person. Or we had a lot of in-person events, Sapphire, our big user conference, half the team would end up working Sapphire. And so you'd get to, reforge your relationships there. We don't have that now. And that really is a challenge. There's no perfect replacement for it. And we've been, kind of trying to find creative ways to fill in that gap. And so, for example, last year we had an all hands meeting. So, the full complement of the team that wasn't focused on work at all. Like we didn't do one minute of work during that meeting. I think we were together for an hour and a half or 2 hours. We had a facilitator and we solved a virtual mystery from ancient Egypt. So, we learned some history, we got clues, we played games, we turned our cameras on and, connected in a really fun way. So that's the type of stuff that I think you need to build in now, because that in-person connection is really not replaceable, but there are ways to help it recharge.
What a great story. I love that, because another thing of this podcast is every day the theme of the show is always technology works best when it brings people together. And although technology was able to keep everyone connected when working remotely, what stands out about what you guys have done is you remain human focused to keep your employees engaged and the business in the green. Was that something that was very important to you all from the outset? And do you have any other stories around that?
Yeah, I could expand on that a little bit. So there's some really basic, probably in everybody's arsenal is like chat functions, whether it's Slack or Teams, those are really important. So I believe our surveys. So again, this is technology like something like Qualtrics that does let you remain human focused, because you can kind of be listening all the time to how your employees are thinking and feeling, and you can react more quickly. If you start to notice that there's stressors there, and then not so much technology reliant, but just a way to remain human focused is really employee recognition. So we have a program that allows us to, kind of appreciate each other, either in more of a formal written way or even in a monetary kind of point system way, where you can kind of give recognition to other people, either peer to peer or even skip ranks. I have seen, interns do and appreciate for somebody 2 levels up. It's really empowers individual people to share their appreciation with other people on the team. And we took it a little bit further and created some formal recognition categories that we kind of go through on a quarterly basis. one of my favorites is True Grit, which, we recognize somebody who's shown kind of perseverance and the ability to stick to something in the face of challenges. They don't have to have succeeded. They don't have to have won the fight. We are recognizing the fight. And I think that, that sort of epitomizes one of the, kind of main parts of the culture of my team, because we've got people willing to roll up their sleeves and keep going back until we get the simplification that we need. And so that's one of my current favorite examples.
Yeah, 100% with you on that. And I think something else everyone's missed is the role of serendipity. I think we all kind of took it for granted that you go to the coffee machine or the water cooler and you meet someone from a completely different department who you've never spoke to before. And before you know it, there's a bit of a synergy and the kind of problems that you're both working on there, and you end up teaming up together to fix it once and for all. But I'm curious, as we move forward, what's one initiative on your whiteboard that wasn't there last year? Is there anything you can share around that?
So, I think we feel that the pandemic, might be starting to run its course. That maybe people are getting this kind of new way of working and the new way of the world. But, I mentioned surveys earlier, and SAP has kind of this constant listening culture overall at the corporate level where we do kind of pulse checks. And the last one for my team, health and well-being, really an area of concern. And it was an area of concern for me because it dropped. Now, yes, we're going into the third year of a pandemic, but I think that speaks to people starting to run out of their kind of natural resiliency and an ability to kind of always be in emergency mode. And one of the things the company had started was a support group for, employees that are caregivers. So, that might mean you're caring for a spouse or a close family member, a child or a parent, or you're like me and you have both. Because my mother lives with me and so do my kids. And so for me, I think it's something that I didn't realize we needed to spend quite as much time and effort on last year, but the survey results have shown me otherwise. Is that kind of support for people and just understanding kind of that unique situation that caregivers are in. So that is on my list this year, number one.
Awesome. Incredibly cool. And another topic I wanted to bring, because you've just mentioned surveys there, and I remember reading a few years ago that it was something like 77% of all worldwide business transactions actually go through and touch an SAP system. And that system, that stat has always stuck with me because it blew me away. But is that still the case? And are there any other stats or common myths about SAP or your job that you can share with everyone listening today?
Well, I love that stat too, because it helped me a lot. For some reason, in my circle, my family's, my friends, a lot of the time people haven't really heard of SAP or don't know what SAP does. Yeah. And so it's been a great kind of cocktail conversation starter to be able to say, more than 77%, because I do think it's grown. I don't think that number has dropped. I think it has grown. There are a couple other stats that I love too. So kind of right in line with that 77% of transactions. If you look at it from SAP customers and the businesses that they run, SAP customers generate 87% of total global commerce. So about $46 trillion.
Whoa. Man, I did my best Keanu Reeves impression there. That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. And then the other one that most recently has blown me away, because I was actually checking out our kind of corporate fact sheet. But with this move to the cloud and the transformation that SAP itself is going through, as well as all of our customers, we now have approximately 237 million cloud users.
That's just incredible, isn't it?
So, yep, we cast a wide net, and it seems to get wider every day.
Oh man, I absolutely love that. And you've mentioned that you first got that. It was like a cocktail party. I was at a show floor at a tech conference, and I was chatting to somebody, and they dropped that stat on me, and it's just something that completely stuck with me.
Yeah, there are some other ones out there.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know the exact one, like the exact numbers. I don't have memorized, but illustratively, there are stats out there like something like 70% of all the beer production, more than 70% of all the chocolate production. It's awesome when you look into like sneakers, the amount of like all the sneakers produced that we touch. I love looking at that because we're a fun company, if you
Yeah.
you look at it that way.
Oh, consider my mind officially blown. But I'm curious, how has technology helped you manage this global team of professionals right across the marketing mix? And for people listening all around the world, is there any advice that you would offer for any business leaders that could be listening?
If you have a 12-year-old in your house, sit down and ask them what they're doing at school. I happen to have access to a 12, soon to be 13-year-old, and that is usually one of the most mind-boggling conversations for me. I'm like, oh, well, okay, now I have to go. I have to go research that. If you don't have a 12-year-old in your house, maybe there's one you can borrow, but that is probably my key piece of advice about trying to find new technology that could aid in collaboration, in engagement, in bringing people together. And then you learn new words that way too, like sus. I didn't realize that was suspect. Yeah, that's number one. Talk to the teenagers around you.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the fact that you've brought that up, because it wasn't too long ago that older people in the workplace would scoff at youngsters or treat their opinions with a little bit of disregard. But now, the fact that they're looking to them to help lead the way, and of course we've got Gen Z coming into the workplace now and scaring the life out of the older people because of how natural technology is to them, and they cannot remember a time before an iPhone or an iPad. Digital natives, and I think it makes it more vibrant and an exciting place. But what emerging technologies excite you at the moment, and how do you hope that they will help you in the future? Is there anything that caught your...
Definitely. So a couple, conversational AI and robotic process automation are both things that I'm excited about and looking at for a couple reasons right now. So first, and selfishly, these are things that we're selling on SAP Store. So they happen to really meet what I call our digital native criteria. That means they're easy. It's kind of easy to compare and understand and make a buy decision about them. And then once you buy them, they're easy to get up and running and start using pretty quickly. So we have products in both those categories that we sell online, both from SAP and from our partners. Secondly, those are technologies that we are kind of piloting the use of right now as well. And really, a pilot might be too strong of a word, because we're kind of beyond the pilot phase. We already know they're helping us. So we're really in kind of a test and learn fast iteration mode with both. So on the robotic process automation, we're using chatbots that we build with that for our customer support on our marketplace. And, so far we found that we can cover around 20% of support questions successfully with the bots, which then frees up our human resources to deal with more complex questions and really improve customer satisfaction. So that's kind of one. And then on the conversational AI front, our marketing and demand generation efforts are benefiting from this. So, it's really a new way to engage with people, usually in social media, and it can be quite targeted, but the conversational AI serves much more relevant, kind of chat-like conversations with people. And the early results of that are also, quite promising. So those are two that kind of get me up and running in the morning.
Excellent. And I love chatting with you today. And we began the podcast talking about your origin story, which was all good. And now we've come full circle. And I'm going to ask if there was a song, piece of music, movie or book or anything that has inspired you, accompanied you or helped you throughout your career. What would your choice be? And do you have a story behind it? And let's leave the listeners on an inspirational note today.
Well, I think I'd recommend a book. I am a reader.
Yeah.
I read a ton, and this one is a little older. It's been out for almost 10 years, but it holds up. And so that book is The One Thing. The subhead for that is The Surprisingly Simple Truth Behind Extraordinary Results. It's by Gary Keller. And what's written inside the front cover of that sort of, I think, sums up the whole book and is quite catchy. So if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either.
Oh, I like the sound of that. I'm going to have to check that one out myself. And I will add it to our Amazon wish list for everyone listening so they can check it out as well. But before I let you go, SAP is a huge, huge website, and we've covered so much today. What would be the best starting point for anyone to find out more information about anything we've talked about and contact your team if they've got any questions? Well,
I am personally available on Twitter. It's at AL Mountain. And yes, that's just like you think it's spelled. My last name is MOUNTAIN. But then all the other stuff that I've talked, check out the tip of the iceberg, check out SAP Store. And, everything can be found there. We also have blogs and news and customer success stories. So it's a rich source of information, not just buying.
Excellent. I'll have those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. And I'd love chatting about over the last 2 years and how it's reshaped the way that you've led your team, and also the impact of being virtual has had on your employees and the effect on B2B sales and customer experience. And I always say at the end of every episode, as I said earlier, technology works best when it brings people together. And I love the fact that despite everything that's happened and this reliance on technology, you've remained human focused to keep your employees engaged and businesses in the green. So thank you so much for sharing that and your story with me today.
It has been my pleasure talking with you.
Wow, what a great conversation. And I cannot thank Amanda enough for sharing her experiences at SAP. But wherever you're listening in the world and whatever the size of your business, I want to hear your story too. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes. But don't just send a connection request. Send a little message as well. It's so important for me to know who you are, where you're listening, and get to know you all a little bit too. And remember, there's always an open invite to come on here if you'd like a conversation. My website is also techblogwriter.co.uk. If you'd like to work with me, launching your own podcast or creating content, ghostwriting articles, whatever it might be, give me a shout. Other than that, I'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. We'll do it all again. I've got another guest from another industry lined up. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.